It's Friday, March 7th, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principek.
I'm Stephanie Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 66. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy uses his Roku stick on Watson's pie.
Yeah,
Sydney feels bad for the persecuted. And I buy Tony Bates a CarPlay. We start tonight with the creator of Bitcoin possibly getting outed by Newsweek.
Yes, and this week in stories that make me mad, people are out harassing introverts again. Yes. So this time it's not the maker of Flappy Bird who's being bothered, but the alleged creator of something more mysterious, Bitcoin. So up until this past Thursday, Bitcoin's creator was simply known as Satoshi Nakamoto, which was widely assumed to be a pseudonym. But Newsweek dropped a bombshell on the world this week when they ran an article titled "The Face Behind Bitcoin," claiming that the creator of Bitcoin is, in fact, a man named Satoshi Nakamoto.
Funny
Hiding
how
in
that
plain
works.
sight.
Yes,
Oh,
it's kind of
clever.
just exactly
The closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm.
Yes.
It's the last thing to expect.
So now it's not, he's changed his name somewhat, so he's actually Dorian P. something, so he goes by Dorian S. Nakamoto. So it's still Satoshi Nakamoto, it's there. So the article by Leah McGrath Goodman details her search for Bitcoin's mysterious creator and how it led her to a 64-year-old Japanese-American man living with his 93-year-old mother in Temple City, California. So according to Goodman's article, there are several important similarities between the two Nakamotos. First, email and...
They have the same name.
That's one
How
little
convenient.
thing, but it's not exactly an uncommon name.
Speak for yourself.
I don't. Anyways, keep going.
If you read the article, she goes into detail about these are all the people that I found in death registries with this name, and it's a really long article. So she does go into the fact that it is not a particularly uncommon name as Japanese names go. But basically, similarities. First of all, the email and forum communications from Nakamoto, as well as some details about the way in which he codes, seems to indicate that he was older than a lot of the Bitcoin team. He had a kind of an old-fashioned way, I guess, of coding things, and then also just some of the language, word choices that he used in his communications, people seem to think indicated that he was an older person.
Okay.
And then the messiness of his code apparently indicates that he's probably doing stuff by himself rather than working with a team to smooth things out. So that would indicate a single person working by himself. Secondly, Bitcoin's Nakamoto, again with the writing, has a similar writing style in his correspondence to that of the other Nakamoto. Basically, just the way that he phrases things, grammar things, slipping in and out to Japanese English was similar there. And then the biggest thing, according to this article, is that Mr. Dorian S. Nakamoto has a very convenient gap in his career history, which is right around the time that Bitcoin would have been created. And then just a similar background as far as he's worked in technology. He has a background having worked on various government secret projects. So some similarities in the background that would be required for the creator of Bitcoin, which is kind of the key evidence here.
Mm-hmm.
So all of it adds up to definitely a maybe, a decent match here. But possibly as big as the story of the possible reveal of the Bitcoin creator was the backlash that came against this story. So kind of early on in the article, what Goodman says something. She says, "It seemed ludicrous that the man credited with inventing Bitcoin would retreat to Los Angeles' San Gabriel foothills, hole up in the family home, and leave his estimated 400 million of Bitcoin riches untouched. It seemed similarly implausible that Nakamoto's first response to my knocking at his door would be to call the cops."
That's the part that does not seem unplausible.
If you continue to read her article, at least to me personally, I'm not sure why she finds that unplausible, because the methods that were used in her research are questionable. I mean, I'm not a journalist of any kind, other than this podcast, but
we're commentators.
Right. So, she is talking about, I got his email address from a company that he uses to buy model train parts from. She talks to his wife that he's separated from. She talks to his family members. She, was corresponding with him by email about model train stuff, but as soon as she sends him an email about Bitcoin, he stops conversation with her, ceases communication. And then when she calls him on the phone asking if, he wants to talk with her or will talk with her, he says no. And yet,
what is it? Something? No, I don't do that anymore?
That was not until she showed up at his house after him having said, no, I don't want to talk to you about this on the phone. So then, of course, the logical thing would be to go to this person's house once they've already told you, leave me alone.
This would make a great stalker movie.
Yeah, so that's the line that people are saying, this is clearly indicates that he is the Bitcoin guy. So this is at that point when she is at his house witnessed by the two police officers who were there because, somebody came to his house. He didn't want them to be there. He called the police. I mean, what a crazy guy who would do that. So he said...
In L.A., nonetheless.
Right. So he said, "I am no longer involved in that, and I cannot discuss it. It's been turned over to other people. They are in charge of it now. I no longer have any connection."
So that's a tacit admission. So she found... This is, she found it. That sounds like confirmation to me.
That's what she's saying, and most people who read it, that's what they say is the strongest piece of evidence. Now, in a later interview with AP, he completely denies it. And P.S., on his way to said interview with the Associated Press, he was tailed in essentially a low-speed car chase by several members of the press because harassing 64-year-old men is definitely an honorable way to make your money. But he said, that he was talking about engineering, that she misunderstood what he was saying, that he wasn't talking about Bitcoin. He didn't know what Bitcoin was until his son told him what it was, that this woman wanted to talk to him about Bitcoin. So, yeah. This whole thing, as you can tell, makes me very irritated because it's yet another story about members of the press harassing someone who clearly wants to be left alone. I mean, whether this is the guy or not, first of all, if it's not the guy, you have published pictures of his house in national news and you're harassing some poor old man who has no idea what's going on. And even if it is the guy, he's taken steps to be sure that he is not publicly noted for being involved with this thing. Leave him alone. Just stop.
Yeah, but that's not... A, that's not the news. And B, that's not realistic. So far, she hasn't published anything that isn't in the public domain. And I think that's something we want to make clear. It's not like she publishes bank records or things that are actually private. There are things that he may or may not want getting out there, but it's all things that are available via public records. Like your address.
Doesn't mean it's not icky.
Icky? Sure. But it's not what she does is maybe uncomfortable, but it's nothing illegal. She has broken no law. Yet.
As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell. I mean, what she's done is she's done investigative journalism. A fairly aggressive version of investigative journalism. What I don't understand is the fascination at all with who wrote this program.
Because I don't care.
I don't care.
Now, granted, some of that is because I just don't care about Bitcoin, other than I'm going to be fascinated to watch it crash and burn. Like
it's come back up. It's up $200
I think
from last week.
It just ties into the whole, the aura that surrounds Bitcoin, the it's kind of a shady currency that's used for
Ooh, the
buying
dark
drugs
net.
and weapons and
Drugs, mainly.
hits and prostitutes and whatever.
And
so
drugs.
the idea that we don't know who created it makes everybody really hope that there's some evil mastermind somewhere who's created this currency in his grand plot to take over the world, because that would be a really good story.
Sure, they made a Bond movie about that where Julian Assange was a Bond villain. It's called Skyfall.
Right. I mean, that's
That
why
is.
this
That's
is
what
a story.
Skyfall is. It's Julian Assange
No,
the
it
Bond
is. You're
villain.
right. I agree.
Hey, I'm not saying they don't do a good job with it, but like Julian Assange may or may not should not sue them, because this is like they also had Rupert Murdoch, the Bond villain, for what? World Is Not Enough. That's Rupert.
No. Tomorrow.
Is that Tomorrow Never Dies? The
Tomorrow
one with the
Never
stealth
Dies.
boat in the news. That's Tomorrow
Yeah,
Never
yeah,
Dies.
Tomorrow
In the
Never Dies.
BMW 7 Series.
I can't keep them straight.
I can.
Seen all of them.
Yeah.
Even
World
the
Is
bad
Not
ones.
Enough. Is that the... No, Die Another Day is the one with the Ice Palace and the
Yeah,
Aston
with
Martin.
Halle Berry.
And Halle Berry, yes. And the Ford Thunderbird.
Okay, so I feel like it's important to note that this is how little we care about Bitcoin. We've started talking about James Bond instead.
Well, and yeah, my primary interest in this story is being annoyed.
Well, I mean, the press is, like, camped out at his house.
It's just
This guy is getting the press of, like, a member of the Duck Dynasty family.
well, because apparently we've decided if anybody does anything of significance, they no longer have a right to be left alone
Fact.
if they choose.
Yes, fact. That's
That's
where our culture
horrendous.
is. I'm not arguing this is a positive. What I'm
You're not
saying
saying it's
is
a
that
good thing that we're like that, but
that is kind of where it is. I mean, that's the paparazzi mentality of you become prominent, you sign away all privacy. Full stop, the end. And you have to go to great lengths to maintain your privacy, to the point where it's
often
just not
involving
possible.
large amounts of money and just not
Walls and
Yeah.
tunnels.
security.
I just feel like it discourages people from sharing ideas.
No, you say that. It's funny. Because generally speaking, people don't understand the consequences of this until long
That's true.
after they do it. So, the kind of everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame until you get it. And then it's awful.
But not everyone wants their 15 minutes, because not everyone is a Zuckerberg or a Jobs. Not everyone wants to be up there showboating about their technology.
But when those guys got it, they actually, Jobs certainly fed off of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and
but-
not everybody does.
I'd say I don't know if Zuckerberg actually feeds off of
No,
it.
I think
he
Zuck
tolerates
is just
people.
decided. Zuck processes everything as an equation, and he's realized that in the equation he has to appear publicly, which I think is originally how Gates approached the same thing. But I get that not everyone likes the spotlight once they get there, but I think generally speaking, and we kind of see this in the games press. Folks, have their indie game that they really want it to be successful. And then once it does blow up and all the attention descends, there's not just Flappy Birds, but a lot of cases where people are like, oh my god, I can't handle the pressure. And everyone's like, dude, you can't handle the pressure? You have what we all want. Yes, you think you want that. But in reality, you have signed away your life. And the internet is not a place for the thin-skinned or even the people with any sensitivity at all. Because the internet will just tear you apart. And in the mainstream media does a pretty good job of that on its own too, even without the internet. So you have this guy that's an internet figure as well as now something in the mainstream media because, that scary Bitcoin thing. And so this guy doesn't stand a chance. It's
Well,
terrible.
especially with like the negative press that Bitcoin's had recently with the Mt. Gox mess and
Yeah, well, it
just
turns out
everything else.
if he did do that, he made a mistake in his coding with transaction IDs. But that's neither here nor there.
apparently it's messy because he worked alone.
Did I mention the guy lives with his 93-year-old mother?
Sure. And it's probably free. The house is paid for.
It probably goes the other way. His 93-year-old
Yeah,
mother
mother
probably
lives
lives
with
with
Well,
him.
that's what I'm saying, though. So you're not only certain.
Yes, but I agree.
She's
This
being
is
harassed
ridiculous.
too, and she didn't do anything.
Sure. Look, I don't think that the press should be camped out in front of this guy's house. I'm not sure it's all that interesting that he's found. I wasn't sitting here wondering who came up with it. I figured it was a team of academic coders.
Well, it's also not like it's, anonymous or someone that's actually done something bad. Like,
No. He's
Or
done
like-
something remarkably neutral. It's what we do with Bitcoin that makes it good or bad. It's just a tool. It's like a chainsaw or the internet itself or a machine gun.
actually, it is really just the internet itself.
Yeah, it's a tool. I have a sermon on this, but it's a tool. What you do with that tool?
I think I've listened to that one.
It's.
I was there.
It was. I was actually preaching on money, but all
Yeah.
of these things.
Actually, no, I was there for that one too.
All of these things are just tools. What he has created is a tool. What we do with it, he's created a commodity that's functioning as a tool. But, anyways, I feel bad for the guy. I do. We can rail against the press all we want and say, oh, we wish it wasn't that way, but that's apparently how they make money. So that sucks.
Well, and I mean, how many hits has Newsweek gotten as a result of this story?
5 from
people
us.
linking back to it, and yeah, apparently we gave it 5 because it told me I wasn't allowed to look at it again.
Yep, that's fact.
So I could not actually do the original research on this without paying money because Newsweek blocked me.
Yeah, I mean, they got 5 hits
'Cause
out
I'm
of
shady.
us.
I
Right.
am the dark net.
And I'll probably buy the copy of the magazine just to kind of have as a historical piece, but
Oh yeah,
because I do weird things like that.
you can do things like that.
I feel bad for the guy. I really do, but I kind of wish this was a non-story. Really?
This really shouldn't be a story.
I mean, the story is more what Newsweek did and how they did it, and less him. It's just this guy likes model trains and coding. Sounds kind of interesting, actually.
You and I could be friends.
Yeah, this guy sounds like a cool guy. Like, everyone's like, ooh, model train enthusiast. Like, cool.
I love model trains.
Yeah. It's
Let's be friends,
fascinating.
Bitcoin man.
Let's be friends. Satoru Nakamoto.
So whatever. Bitcoin man.
Saruto Iwata. No, that's... Mori Miyamoto. That's Iron Chef. I don't
Yeah,
know.
man, that was the one I was going
Yeah.
for.
I just keep
Masaharu
thinking of the
Morimoto.
Pokemon guy because they actually do have the
Same first
part
name.
of the same name. Satoshi Tajiri.
Sure. So, speaking of people I feel bad for,
Oh gosh.
Satya Nadella is kicking ass and taking names, or at least cleaning house and changing names. Tony Bates, who was the head of business development and evangelism and the former CEO of Skype, has left Microsoft. So has Tammy Reller, a 10-year Microsoft vet who is leaving her position as executive vice president of marketing. She helped stabilize the Windows division after Sinofsky left in 2012. Sinofsky was, by the way, probably most likely summarily fired. I say left. Mark Penn, former Clinton aide and mastermind of the Screwgold campaign, moves up to chief strategy officer.
What
So
could
everything is
possibly
about to get a
wrong?
lot more petty. And rumor has it that Bates may become the CEO of action camera maker GoPro as they prepare to go public. So, is this what we expected out of Microsoft under a new CEO?
I can't say I'm surprised that Tony Bates
No, we kind of
is
knew,
not
right?
there anymore. Whether by his own, like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be here.
That's one of those you applied for the same job as your boss and now it's awkward
Yep.
situations.
I really think that's what it is.
I don't think that there was any, like, you know, I don't think anyone's surprised by that move.
Sure.
Also, they're still doing that Screwgold campaign, apparently.
Oh,
and-
yeah. They're big into it.
and
It's
like,
very successful, they think.
Hey, Trey,
Specifically,
remember your new favorite phrase? That on this. I can't say it because he would bleep me. So,
I would.
but
You'll have to say it on T4 so we'll all know what you're talking about.
I will say it on T4.
So now you all have to listen to T4 to find out
Cross
what Jim's
promotion.
talking about.
Yeah.
That's Techies Talking Tech tonight.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see where Tammy Reller goes.
Yeah, that's one of those, like, no one really knows. Tammy Reller is the one that's, because she wasn't in the running for CEO, as far as we knew. She wasn't on the short list.
Let's see. Crazy thought. She's going to Yahoo.
Yeah, sure. She's going to become Marissa
like
Myers.
everybody else.
Yeah, well, sure. They got Marissa Myers.
Do they need another marketing person over there?
Yes, because whatever they're doing
Always.
isn't working.
I don't know. You say that. They've actually been doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I use some of their
Relative.
services. But, I don't know. Tammy Reller's the one that surprises me. I was pretty sure at least one of the CEOs in waiting, Tony Bates, who used to be a CEO, then wasn't, then was passed over. When we talked about Satya getting picked up as CEO, we were pretty sure that at least one of these CEOs in waiting, that is Tony Bates, that was turned into Tony Bates, would leave. Stephen Elop last week was officially announced as taking over as head of Devices and Studios, replacing Julie Larson Green in that job. Julie Larson Green has been kicked up to Chief Experience Officer.
Darn,
Whatever
that means. Which that's another move.
To me.
That's another move where I look at and go, what is that? What does that mean? That
starting to look like a triple rainbow.
Chief Experience Officer. I mean, I can intellectually back out what it's supposed to mean.
No, but still.
Well, what does it mean when you go from being the head of Devices and Studios, before that the head of Windows, and now you're a C-level, like what gets called a C-level executive. This is the new term I've learned this week.
So this is supposed to be a
is
move
in like
up?
the level that the C is at?
As chief. Like C. Like brought to you by the letter.
This episode of Text Last Call is brought to you by the letter C.
Yeah, letter C. I can't use this.
And the number 8.1.1.
8.1.1. I mean, she's now a C-level executive, as is Mark Penn, but Mark Penn is in like a position that makes sense. What the hell does Chief Experience Officer do? Would love to have her on the show someday and ask her. So, what does Chief Experience Officer do?
What exactly do you do at Microsoft?
I asked a similar question to that.
They got rid of their other lady, so they had to make that lady more important.
Sure, I
so
guess.
That no one would think they were sexist.
So they took away all of her power and gave her a touchy-feely position? This is like putting the female anchor on the cat shows.
Or
this
the
woman was
weather.
The head of, this woman was the head of Windows. Like,
joking.
She was the head of Windows for like 3 months or something before they changed the naming of things.
No, I mean it was
longer than that. Actually,
no, it
I have
was.
no concept.
She was. Yeah, it was fall 2012.
When did we get rid of Sinofsky?
Fall 2012.
Okay, and then she got bumped in the July shakeup.
Whenever the shakeup was, beginning of August, I believe.
So yeah, okay, 9 months, whatever.
And well, okay, but she actually split that job with the other woman we've been talking about, Tammy Reller. So Julie Larson Green handled like the operating system stuff, and Tammy Reller handled the marketing stuff. And so they kind of split the job. So it took 2 women to replace one douchebag. Is what that means.
Fascinating.
What I kind of looking to the future with this, I want to know what's going to happen with Stephen Elop once he does come over from Nokia.
He's going to lead a revolution and take over as CEO, thereby restoring my prediction.
No,
I mean, you got to realize he started out at
existence.
Microsoft, so I don't think it counts.
Darn.
I don't think he ever counted as an outside candidate. He started out at Microsoft. He's back. He left and he came back, and he brought a company with him.
I shall prevail.
My
very
concern,
successful handset company.
yeah, my concern with Elop taking over at Devices and Studios is Devices and Studios is A, the part of Microsoft I care about, and B, it's where the Xbox division lives. He is the one who has suggested
same things.
He is the one that has suggested selling off the Xbox division because it's relatively a small business on Microsoft scale.
Yeah, but it's a great advertising engine.
Look, I don't agree with him. I think he's crazy. But I don't like the idea of the guy now heading Devices and Studios, the person with the crazy ideas about Devices and Studios,
Look,
and
okay.
that and Azure Cloud are the 2 aspects of Microsoft I care about.
Let's go back. Remember who used to be the CEO of Microsoft until like a month ago?
Ballmer. But guess
He
who?
was insane.
Yes, but he also liked Devices and Studios.
Yeah, that's true.
He was insane in all the... Well, okay, some of the right ways. Don't ask him to name a thing. Hey, Steve, what do we call the next version of Windows? Windows 7? How is it the 7th version of Windows? Don't think too hard.
Because it comes after Winmo 6.5?
Because it comes after Winmo. I am convinced it
That's
is because it
actually
comes
why.
after Winmo 6.5. Because the whole operating systems got renamed because it came after Winmo 6.5.
Because they had to ditch the Windows Mobile operating system naming scheme, so they instead went to Windows Phone 7 phone.
And then just Windows 7 because we're still in the 6.0 dot something. And no one wants that. That's what Apple does. 10.9 is what we're on right now. Looking
It'll
forward
be
to
a
10.
revolution when they go to 11.
No, they won't do it. I just don't think they're going to do
They'll
it.
go to 10.9.5.
Look, right now I don't see a reason to until they just fully merge into one operating system. But we're getting pretty far afield. So to pull us back quite literally to our home, what did Roku do?
Yeah, so this week Roku teased their newest update to their popular streaming box platform. Okay, I think it's popular. The
Popular with
diminutive
Jimmy.
I know
Roku
it's
streaming
my
stick.
father loves it.
Yes, I partially on my
My
recommendation.
grandfather, I think, has one. No, he has an Apple TV.
So anyways, so they announced the small Roku streaming stick. Now you might be thinking they already have one of those things. This one's slightly different.
This
It'll
one's
be available
much
in
better.
April for $49. It has it looks very similar to their previous one that used the MHL port, except this one
new device.
no,
It doesn't
is
look
a new
different.
device.
It
It's
doesn't
slightly
look different.
smaller.
It doesn't look different.
Uses HDMI.
Doesn't look different.
I'm not going to call out you. Anyways, uses HDMI and a micro USB connection on the back in order to provide power. Now, if that sounds oddly familiar, it's very much like the popular Chromecast from Google. That's
Yeah, but
killing
that's-
it.
But that's also what-
our number 3 device of 2013.
I love streaming sticks. But that's what makes this device so much better than its previous edition. So the previous edition used, what was it called?
It was the MHL port.
MHL port. Which
So it was able to get power from the television as well as it could be controlled. It could control and could be controlled by the TV's remote.
Right. And that was all through that port. And
And
so
it
instead,
was really cool.
Yeah.
But not everyone has one.
so now I think this is even cooler because you can hook it into any HDMI and most televisions have a powered USB port.
Right,
And
which is
so
what the
you just-
Chromecast does.
Right. And so you just hook into that USB port. I think that's really brilliant on the part of Google and on Roku replicating that aspect.
The other thing is that unlike the Chromecast, which just is a dongle and a plug, it comes with a remote, this newfangled thing
Yeah.
that connects to it via Wi-Fi Direct, like all the other Roku remotes do. But it doesn't have the headphone port in it, so that you have to upgrade to the higher levels in order to get that feature. It also supports, the Roku ecosystem that we're all familiar with, that got updated about a year ago, that I absolutely adore, with its like Omni search thing and all of those wonderful cross service search features. But realistically, this is replacing the Roku LT, which is their low end budget all purple Roku box that's currently available for $49. So, Sydney, do you think that this Roku has the ability to really challenge Google's dominance in that low end that they've kind of established in the last 6 months, or is price everything?
I feel like the Roku name will help. The price difference isn't huge. So I feel like if you're somebody who's already familiar with Roku, maybe you've had Roku devices in the past, you're comfortable with the ecosystem, or you're a fan of the ecosystem, that could definitely sway people. Because Roku definitely has the name recognition, and Chromecast. I guess it's been around for a while, so
Google's been advertising the hell
Yeah.
out of those things.
But I think.
But I feel like Roku, Roku is known for streaming. That's what they're known for, and so I feel like
they were
have
the
an-
original Netflix box.
right. So I feel like they have an advantage from that standpoint.
This also has a vast advantage in the ease of use. For two reasons.
And it has a remote.
One is
people
that
like
remote.
remotes because they have buttons.
One is that remote, so it's a little less intimidating. to some folks. 2, this has access to the entire Roku apps category.
Right.
Catalog. Thousands of apps.
It has 1,000 or so apps.
But pretty much everything you could want minus one. YouTube.
Yeah, iTunes.
No,
it has
YouTube.
YouTube. They have
does
YouTube.
not.
Yes, they do.
Only one model of Roku has YouTube. And it's not this one.
Is that right?
Yes.
Sorry, I have the one model of Roku that
I
would
know
have
you
it.
do.
So
one model of Roku has it. This one does not.
interesting.
And
No. Okay, so in the discussion of it beforehand, they were saying how it'll be similar to the Chromecast in that it will be able to, because I know that you can, on my Roku 3, you can stream Netflix, and when I'm going to stream it to the Chromecast, my Roku pops up too, from both Netflix and from YouTube. I believe that YouTube was rolled out to everything.
I'll fact check it, but...
And that would be important because this is not going to have a very powerful processor. They said that in Matthew Moscoviak's kind of first look over at CNET, he mentioned that the processor is going to be similar to what's in a Roku 1. And so it's going to be a lot slower than the Roku 3. I mean, it's definitely not going to be, don't expect Roku 3 level performance out of this thing, but it'll be a small and,
Jimmy wins.
Yeah, no, it does. That's interesting. There are still models that don't, but this does. This does have...
Yeah, well, the previous generation doesn't
support
it, would be my suspicion.
Yeah.
But that, this current generation, because they after they did the Roku 3, in the fall, they re-released a bunch of new, with the heavier new form factor for the Roku 2 and the Roku 1, I believe, is the actual numbering convention. 1, 2, 3, which isn't confusing at all. It's not like they've had those before.
Sure.
And so they're going to kill the Roku 1 and they're going to put this thing out.
That makes sense.
So I have already pre-ordered one. So it should arrive probably the middle of April. So I will plan on doing a hands-on with this thing right when I get it in, give a compare and contrast to the Roku 3 and the Chromecast when it comes in, because I have both, because, Lord knows I just need another streaming solution in my life.
Sure. In terms of this,
Jimmy, you're a cord cutter.
So in terms of this form factor, do you think this is the kind of the right direction for streaming sticks? Or streaming devices? Or are we still going to see hockey pucks?
I think that the hockey puck is dead. I mean, the only reasons to do a hockey puck at this point are, I think that this is smart for Roku, doing it on the low end of price. So they're competing with the Chromecast on price. But the thing that they're doing is they're saying, okay, do you care more about speed or do you care more about convenience? And I think that you're going to find that people want the lower price with the, lower power, lower, not loading quite as fast, and all of those things. I think that people are going to make that trade-off without even realizing it, and they'll still be happy with the experience. Because Roku's still a pretty lightweight operating system. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll probably get another revision of the Apple TV this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we think that's coming in the next couple of months.
At the same... Well, but it'll probably be a similar form factor. I don't think
the hockey puck.
The hockey puck, that's what I mean. It's similar to its current form factor. I don't think that they'll be able to reverse gears quickly enough to respond to the Chromecast and completely rework it.
But I'm not even sure they'd want to. I'm not sure that's
it's not an elegant solution at the end of the day because of the micro USB coming off the back. And because of that, I don't think Apple will do one.
No, because it's kludgy. It's a cable and a cable. And
they would do an MHL one. They would do one very similar to the Roku streaming stick that came out. I guess that was a year and a half ago that thing came out. Yeah, and
then they would just, the same way Roku did, brand it as, Apple TV ready and make us all adopt a proprietary format.
It's not proprietary.
Well, that's true. A less common format, right? Because Thunderbolt isn't
all
proprietary.
new TVs are shipping with MHL ports.
Right,
have at least one MHL port.
But remember what's the upgrade cycle for a TV? 5 to 8 years.
Oh, exactly.
And I mean that's the issue with all of this. Is And that's picking back, because we went through the cycle where everyone bought a new TV. And that's why the TV manufacturers are having the worst days of their lives. Because they got so used to, like, everyone needed an HD TV. And now, we've got them. And the incremental differences year to year, as we mock every year in our CES coverage, we go, why do I want to buy that? Maybe this year or next, you will finally get me to upgrade to a 4K TV, but I've had this current TV now for 5 years. And it's a lovely TV. I'm fine with it. But, as these 4K, the kind of 60-inch 4K sets get to around a little under $1,000, that's kind of the right place to buy it.
I'm not buying a TV until OLED gets in the reasonable range in 3 years.
3 years. That's coming.
I think that you'll see, the only thing I can think you'll see an Apple TV that has an MHL port thing, and they'll do something like, you remember how the Roku streaming stick was plugged into that 3M Pico projector? Mm-hmm. So for $300, you got the Roku stick and you got the projector.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It ran on batteries, I think, for like 3 hours or something.
Sure.
And I was this close to buying one because it's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. Yeah. And of course, you can take the Roku stick out and put something else in, or plug in a DVD player, or a Blu-ray player, or whatever you want. But game system.
Sure.
So I could see something like that coming from Apple. I think that the stick idea, other than Apple's, I don't think we're going to see any more set-top box. I think that if Amazon comes out with one, they aren't going to do a box. They'll do a stick. There's been some rumors that Amazon's going to come out with something like that.
Unless it's going to be more like a full-featured game system, which is kind of the other rumor with that.
Right. If they go something more... I don't think that they have anything to offer in addition to the Roku.
Well, they have that whole. Keep in mind, they have that whole Android app store that's full of games.
That's true, but unless they're doing a Ouya style box,
which is what I think is happening.
If they just do something like a Roku, they would be foolish to do something like the Roku 3 form factor.
Sure,
because it will not sell.
Sure. So speaking of foolish and will not sell. Last year at WWDC, Apple announced iOS in the car. This is a way that you could hook your iPhone up and have the car's interface mirror your iPhone interface, basically. So in the run-up,
not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. In the run-up to the Geneva Auto Show this week, Apple released more information. This system is now called CarPlay, which I actually like that name.
Better than iOS in the car.
Right, it's less clunky. It will work with any phone. Any iPhone with a Lightning connector. So iPhone 5 and up. And it basically turns the screen in your car into a limited iOS home screen by hooking your phone in via a Lightning cable. No Bluetooth as of yet. It has involves a dedicated Siri button on the steering wheel and will integrate with your Apple apps as well as certain music services like Stitcher and Pandora, with more to come. The idea, in Apple marketing speak, is to give, quote, leading automakers the ability to roll out CarPlay, the smarter, safer, and more fun way to use iPhone in the car.
Woohoo!
So far, they have Jag, Volvo, Ferrari, Honda, Hyundai, and Merck on for 2014, and a whole slew of other mainstream brands, including GM, Ford, BMW, and Toyota, to come in the near future. What I want to know, though, is, hearing what this is, and it sounds like they've got the automakers behind it, does this actually constitute a step forward?
I want to know how they're going to make it more fun to use my iPhone in the car.
Well, it'd be easier integration.
Johnny Ive will tell you why it's more fun.
It's magical. It'll be unabashedly plastic.
And fun. Well, my car doesn't have a screen in it, so I think I'm out of the loop on this one.
I mean, all of these manufacturers, though, are ones that in the past have provided either a USB port like Ford and GM and Toyota, or actually, no, Toyota has provided a dedicated iPhone cradle or iPod cradle before.
Yeah.
So all of the rest of those had iPod cradles.
Right, but
so I'm not surprised that they're building in some kind of integration where, they've already had it before where they had iPhone readiness.
Right, but this is taking it one step further and having your car's display become an iPhone-specific display where all the UI elements match your iPhone. So it's a similar UI experience across both the car and the phone. It's
Right.
Brian Cooley, CNET's dream idea. And, Android in the car is coming to, and this is, Mirrorcast will do this too. This is not the only system to do it. This just happens to be Apple's implementation of it. But what I'm thinking, looking at here is beyond UI stuff, user interface stuff. What's different? What's new here? My phone,
There's
my
the
car,
Siri button.
my car already basically does this.
Yeah,
So
so
I have
does
an
mine.
So I have an aftermarket head unit in my from Pioneer, in my Subaru, and now I can't use my steering wheel button. I have to use the button on the iPhone, but I hold down the button on my iPhone, and then I can use Siri through the car system. And this is all done can be done via Bluetooth or via Lightning cable, hooked into the USB port in my glove box, and it works. It does not match the UI, but I can even stream over Pandora and iHeartRadio and a couple other streaming services. And I can do this all now, out of the box, with just an upgraded head unit.
Well, and I can do it all out of the box with my basic Ford Sync on my 2011 Ford Fiesta.
Will it read text messages?
It does not. If I had an iPhone, yes.
Okay. So
It does
I
not
knew it did for
recognize-
BlackBerry. I didn't know if that feature ever came for iPhone to sync.
It never came for Android.
Interesting.
But or it came for like limited Android. I don't know. I haven't updated the firmware on it
I can
since
play
I got it.
compact discs in my car.
You also have don't play. You also have an iPod integration.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Currently, it doesn't work.
Although the interesting one for me was, for those of you that haven't watched T4 this week,
Which no one has because it's not up. So, that'll go
so
up
for
tonight,
everyone, I was down a phone. I was missing this phone, so I had a Lumia 521, which is actually, by the way, a wonderful phone. That if you need a cheap off-contract phone, buy it. But it did this interesting thing while I was in the car that my Android phone does not. When I would get a text message, it would know that it was connected to Bluetooth, and so it would say, okay, well, now I'm going to push this, you just got a text message through the Bluetooth, and then you tell the car what you want it to do, and it senses it through the microphone in the car, and it says, what do you want to do? Do you want me to read it? Do you want to ignore it? What do you want to do?
Okay, so I have to manually tell Siri to read me a text message.
So you should try hooking up your Lumia 1020 to your car and see what it does.
So do you think
'Cause I
that's a
would
function
suspect-
of sync or just a function of how Lumias handle Bluetooth?
I think it's a function of Windows Phone.
Sure. Yeah, okay, sure.
And how it handles being connected to Bluetooth.
Sure. That may screw up my Bluetooth system, but anyway.
So that might be something for you to test
Yeah.
in your Subaru. But I think that is by far the most elegant solution, because I don't have to, if I'm listening to Pandora already and something, or I'm, got my navigation going on my phone already, whatever it happens to be. If I already have it connected via Bluetooth and I'm listening to Bluetooth off the phone, it's so seamless.
Sure. No, that sounds really cool.
And so that's kind of, in my mind, and granted, okay, I'm using a Windows phone with
Microsoft Sync.
Microsoft Sync. So I hope that it works
That's
well.
handy.
Right,
Although
which is why we need to test whether that's a Microsoft Sync specific thing or whether it is just how that handles Bluetooth.
Although Microsoft Sync also works better with my 160 gig iPod Classic than it does with my 32 gig Zune HD, because even Microsoft didn't think people would buy them.
Right, but it was one of the few systems with a full Zune support, which very few car systems had support for Zune.
Oh, I guess that's fair. I love my Zune.
So for something kind of out of left field and out of South by Southwest is this week's
Kind of the
Last
same
Call.
thing. So, Trey, you know that feeling when you're out at a restaurant, you've just bitten into something simultaneously delicious and unique, and wondered how in the world that concoction was dreamed up?
Sometimes. Often I think they've included one too many ingredients, but yes, sure.
It always needs more cheese. Well,
or chocolate.
If you were at dinner in Austin, hosted by IBM, the answer to who dreamed it up was the famous Jeopardy playing computer, Watson.
Jeez.
So this is how this worked. So apparently there is chefs from the Institute of Culinary Education in New York. They're actually cooking the meals. And they fed into Watson the basic requirements of the dish, such as the main ingredient and like where they wanted it to come from and kind of like what type of dish they wanted, whether it was, an appetizer or a drink or whatever it was. And then Watson would take those requirements and use the proprietary database that the Institute of Culinary Education has of about 30,000 recipes to generate a creative menu. And it's pretty interesting looking. Some of the stuff might be, and they're doing it out of a food truck, which is very Austin for South by Southwest. So I don't know if either of you got a chance to look at that menu.
I did.
So what do you want to try? And realistically, like, what do we think of the idea of this thing?
So what I read is the thing that got the best reviews was the dessert. What was an Ecuadorian something?
Ecuadorian strawberry dessert.
Yeah, that seemed to get the best results. And it's
because
like
it's easy. It's like safe.
And so Watson has this kind of database of recipes and understanding how chemicals and flavors mix together. And so he outputting as a computer algorithm what he thinks goes well together, but it's up to the chef to decide like what proportion of each ingredient goes into what.
Okay. That makes me feel somewhat more confident.
So he's not spitting out whole recipes, he's spitting out like ingredients that will go well, that like his algorithm is determined will go well together, and the chefs decide the proportions. I think this concept is interesting. I'm not sure what the point is.
Other than we have a supercomputer that does this. Why not?
Right.
We have a supercomputer, and this is a convention for...
What else is IBM doing?
Crazy people.
For South by Southwest.
Look,
nothing.
That's not the question. I get that they have this computer system that it attempts to recreate creativity. Is essentially what they're trying to recreate, is creativity. In the most nerdy way possible. I'm surprised it isn't composing new poetry in Klingon, and that may be next.
Wrong conference.
All right.
They're saving that one for Comic-Con.
If they do that, you heard it here first. Yeah. Poetry in Klingon by Watson.
Sure. Why not? I mean, there's already Hamlet in Klingon.
Why not?
Well, why not? Exactly. I think this is one of those why nots. The one that sounded, I would love to try the Czech pork belly thing.
Masuka.
Masuka. That sounded interesting. Kenyan Brussels sprouts. I don't know what that means.
I want to try Kenyan Brussels sprouts.
I don't know what that means, as most Kenyan food is remarkably bland.
So Kenyan Brussels sprouts are made from Brussels sprouts, almonds, sweet potato, garlic, celery, cardamom, black pepper, ginger, parsley, and olive oil.
What in any way makes that Kenyan?
It says
because
Kenyan.
Watson said so.
Yes, sweet potatoes are a common ingredient.
But sweet potatoes are a New World food, actually.
Yeah, but it has been used heavily in Africa for generations.
It's delicious, is what it is.
But so sure, they call them yams. Yeah, okay. So that's
potatoes.
So that's a thing, but I still don't see how that's Kenyan. Watson, I think you're wrong. On that note, we should probably get out of here.
That bombshell.
Thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Text Last Call.
Trey calls out Watson.
If you have any feedback for the show, podcast at textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. An important programming note before we let you go. This will kind of be the podcast will be transitioning to a new format for a little while. I'm going to be stepping away from the show for probably 6 to 8 weeks to work on some other projects. I will be back sometime in April, but for the rest of March and into April, this podcast will be more a space where you hear 10 minutes of news from Jimmy with a little bit of analysis on the side. It will be much pared down, but we will be back to our normal ways in April. So for me, Trey, I will see y'all then.